Hello and welcome to Inspired to Resign Weekly Wisdom. I am Tammy Jaffe, your host, helping you guys go from employees to entrepreneurs without all of the headaches. And I have a very special guest with us today, Julie Hawkins. And Julie has some amazing things we're going to be talking about because we're talking about how bad boundaries benefit your bottom line. How many of you guys just put me in the chat if you have found yourself like struggling with those boundaries, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, knowing what to do, right? There are so many things we struggle with, especially for those of you who are still working full time and trying to start your business. There's even more boundary issues and getting started. So let me tell you a little bit about Julie. Julie is the author of Say No Without Guilt: 6 Achievable Steps to Set and Communicate Boundaries. In 2001, Julie left her corporate job to become a life coach, NLP trainer, and leading authority in behavior change work. Julie is known as the Biz Psychic. Welcome, Julie. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I spent most of my life, like many of you, in corporate until the dot-com bust. And then I was like, what do I do next? And one day I was having a chat with somebody, and she said, "You ask such great questions. Have you thought about becoming a coach?" And I went, "What's a coach?" And so a few years later, I had taken my training and thought, told everybody I'm a coach. And they went, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh no." So, coaching is very mainstream now. It's like if you don't have a coach, you're not at the top. You're not ever going to be at the top of your game. So I fully support coaching. Tammy is somebody you can go to for that for sure. From there, I really went on to work with a lot of behavioral change work. I noticed that a lot of my clients would get to a certain point and just didn't know where to go from there or how to break through what was happening with them. And through all of my trainings, and then the trainings that I later conducted with my partner, conducted NLP trainings. I noticed that so many of my clients would reach this point and we would clear all these things, and there's hundreds of techniques for clearing negative emotions, and the emotions would come back eventually.
Mhm.
And what I realized was that at the very root of most of those negative emotions, of anger, frustration, resentment, overwhelm, was a lack of boundaries. When you can't set an appropriate boundary for yourself and really comfortably and confidently convey it and have somebody receive it in that way, you just build that resentment and that frustration and that overwhelm. And it's just a vicious cycle. So that's how I kind of got to where I am. I'm also the biz psychic. So that part of my business, you're like, how does that fit together? But really, what it is about is that I help people gain clarity, wisdom, knowledge, and focus and direction. And there are just a variety of ways that that happens.
I love that. Clarity, focus, direction, and I missed one.
Wisdom.
Wisdom. Yes,
Yeah,
wisdom is my word. So, and that's why we call these weekly wisdom. So I can't forget that. Because I think there's so many times when you need that wisdom in your life. You need others to come in and share what they've experienced, share what's going on for them. And tell us a little bit about why or how these boundaries are so critical for our success, right? Like what is it that people don't recognize is happening when they're not getting the success they want?
exactly. So what's happening is when you say yes to somebody and you really want to say no or something else, it doesn't always have to be no. And a
Mhm.
boundary isn't simply always the word no. Uh, there's what's underlying, truly what's underlying your boundaries are your values, your standards, your belief systems in what's most important for you in your life and in your business. And when you are not 100% taking care of that or aligned with that, you give part of yourself away. Sometimes it's a big part of yourself, and it's really a spiral down instead of a spiral up. The other part of that, Tammy, is that we have two different types of boundaries. Well, there's many different types of boundaries, but they fall into two categories. Protective boundaries, and I think most of us are familiar with that. That's to protect us from abuse, physical harm, anything that threatens our safety. And the other kind are supportive boundaries. And those boundaries are in place to help us achieve our goals. And so when you don't have just protective boundaries alone, that's hard enough. That can cause a lot of problems. But certainly not having the supportive boundaries in place, that's where you let yourself down in achieving what you want.
Mm.
So how boundaries benefit your bottom line is that without those goals and without the support structure to achieve those goals, where's your bottom line, right? Whatever that
Yeah.
bottom line is for you.
Yeah.
Am I
And yeah, no, that's all great stuff. And I was thinking there's so much there to unpack too. There's so much there. But I think it's so true. Like you've got to have, you know, those boundaries that say, this is my space, this is what I need to be focused on, this is where I need to go. And those understanding what those things are that's going to help you get there, understanding the things that are going to help you get to that bottom line that you talked about, understanding the things that you actually need to avoid. And I think, like, for me, that's one of the biggest things that I work with some of my clients on is not just what you should be doing, because like that's a big focus, but what you shouldn't be doing.
exactly?
And putting it in the terms of it, that's actually a boundary you need to have in order to get to the results that you want and
Yeah.
being able to recognize those things.
Let me give you an example. It's really, really a common syndrome for people who are self-employed entrepreneurs to think, especially, and I'm going to say especially coaches
Mm-hmm.
or anybody in the helping service industry, to think, I need more training. Oh, I need more hands-on work. Oh, I need more. And the fact is, sometimes you just need to implement what you have.
Yeah.
That's a boundary. That's saying no to the bright, shiny object over there and saying
Mm-hmm.
yes to, I'm going to focus right in the here and now. And what do I need? What is my top priority at this time?
Yeah.
Is it making a call to generate more business? Is it sending out a newsletter? Is it focusing on where you are that will get you the business that you need, or
Mm-hmm.
help you to say no to the things that really aren't in your best interest right now.
Yes, I love that. And it's so true, right? We've got to be able to have that focus. And sometimes, like you said, you need a coach or someone telling you, "Well, those are the things you need to do." Because when you're first starting out, you don't even know. You have no idea. They're just bright, shiny objects. And, it was funny. I was listening to a webinar this morning because someone had told me about it and said, I was listening to more from like a standpoint of I want to learn from this person how they're doing webinars and see what they said that worked and see what doesn't said because I love to evaluate speakers. And as I was listening, I thought, I can see how so many people would be distracted by this because it was a great offer an opportunity. But I was just talking to someone yesterday about this actually the same webinar because they were wanting to go do it. And I'm like, that's you don't even have your business set up yet. Like you don't even know what your focus is yet. You can't go buy that right now. Put it on your list for when you get to a consistent 5K month, 10K month. Like you need to understand when you introduce some of those things. And so I think that's so critical in knowing those pieces. And so how does like the biz psychic tie into all of this and what you do?
Well, they're both So there are both two aspects to my business. The one where I talk about where I'm a recovering people pleaser, like maybe many of you out there, and I have learned how to set my boundaries. And there is a whole process for that. I actually talk about it in my book and teach you how to do it there. And then there's the other aspect where I tap into the intuitive and the higher realm, we'll say. And together, those things bring you the focus, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the direction you need to be able to achieve the goals that you want. You know,
Hmm.
so much, it's so easy for us to buy into somebody else's idea of success.
Yes,
And I really want to remind you that whatever success is for you is what's most important. Your
absolutely.
success is not somebody else's success. So
Hmm.
that's how the biz psychic and boundaries setting come together. They really are very much the same uh, flavor of. They're very much ice cream, just different flavors, as I like to call it. So,
Yeah, I love that. Ice cream with different flavors because we're all different flavors. We're all different people. There's no, two that are exactly cut the same. And you've got to know, what works for someone else may not work for you, or you may be resistant to doing the things that other people are doing and they're not working because of that. Danette has joined and she said this is a good conversation and talking about boundaries for yourself. If you guys have questions as you are watching, be sure to type them in the chat. We'd love to, address any specific questions you have about boundaries and where you're at. We'll have Julie put her book in there as well, so you can grab that if you want to get a copy of that to hear more. But what do you think is the number one cause of negative feelings, such as the resentment, the overwhelm, frustration, anger that you see from your experience and years of doing this?
it is really a lack of boundaries. That's the bottom. That is the bottom line. I in my I'm going to call it anecdotal of
Hmm.
hundreds and hundreds of clients and students. It is not setting a boundary. We would often teach courses and my our students would say, what I've cleared this and I've done this and I've done that and I've done that and I still have these feelings. And I'm like, it's a boundary problem. You
Yeah.
have to set boundaries. And they'd say, well, I don't know how to do that. And that is really the biggest issue,
Yeah.
it's so I can I give a couple of tips about
Yes.
boundary setting?
Love to.
So the first place I tell any of my students or clients to start with boundary setting is is to say my seven magic words. And I'm going to tell you really quickly why they're magical. So when my daughter was in her teens and even younger, she would come to me and ask me for things and I was a single parent. It was a big challenge at times and I would sometimes just get caught up in the moment and say yes or no without thinking about it. And generally when I would say yes, I wouldn't get an argument about her for some from her for something, but if I said no, an argument would ensue. And one day I said to her, I'd like to think about that. And she said, okay. And that was big for my daughter because my daughter is persuasive.
Hmm.
And so I want you to really hear those words. They are my seven magic words. I'd like to think about that. The reason I give them to you in that way, they're very, very specific. Please don't change them until you can think about that without thinking about it, until it comes out of your mouth without even a thought. It's not, let me think about it. It's, I'd like to think about it or think about that. And I tell my students, do that, practice it all weekend long until everybody's sick of hearing you say it.
Yeah.
And then you will get some of that in your bones. The second part of boundary setting that's really, really critical is baby steps. If you're used to being a people pleaser, you're not going to change this overnight. If you could have done it, you would have. It's plain and simple. So it is baby steps and using tools like my 7 magic words. So that's a start for people. I don't like to go too in depth with that because I want you to take baby steps.
Yes. Yeah. And it does start with baby steps because when you're so used, I mean, it's a habit, right? Like not having boundaries is a habit that you have to break, or, having the wrong boundaries is a habit you have to break. And so getting to that point, you just have to first interrupt it. And I think that's what I'd like to think about that does. It interrupts it. It
Yep.
doesn't make it a yes or a no, but it gives you that moment to say, okay, let me stop, really think about what my answer needs to be, what it really is, what truly feels aligned to me, so that you can go out there and have the right answer, the right response, and not just feeling the pressure of saying that.
It is exactly that, as a pattern interrupt to stop your knee jerk automatic response. You hit
Hmm.
You got it exactly. And we have a lot of those. It's not just boundaries. It's not just say yes or say no.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those. So
Yeah, absolutely. We do. And there's a lot of habits to break, there's a lot of boundaries to create. And in doing those, it's going to make us such a difference in your life. It's going to make a difference in how you feel. It's going to make a difference in your success, as you say, right?
well, boundaries really truly do benefit your bottom line, as I say, whatever your bottom line is, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's your bottom line in business or your bottom line in your relationships. It's it truly is just about honoring what is most important to you, being in alignment with it, and confidently and calmly expressing that to someone. When you are triggered, it's really hard to set a boundary. So I teach you, don't don't try to set a boundary when you are being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Take a deep breath, calm yourself, think about what was underneath that for you that got triggered. Was
Yeah.
it you're not being acknowledged or seen? Was it your once again frustration at not having something done the way you wanted it or the way you had agreed to it with
Mm-hmm.
something? It's identifying what is really underneath that trigger of anger, frustration, guilt, overwhelm, stress.
Yes.
It's it it triggers us to respond in ways that do not serve us, that are not just frustrating, but are just give parts of us away that don't feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And being able to, you know, let yourself calm down from that spot of reaction, and not doing it out of obligation and things like that. And, you can just be home working and loving on your cat like Julie is doing. I love this crawling all over you. Awesome. Well, Julie, I know you have a special gift for our people as well. So can you share with us what that gift is?
You know, there's a good place to start is to go to my website. I put it in the chat, juliehawkins.com, and
Mm-hmm.
you can download my free assessment to really gain some clarity about where your boundaries may need some work. Where do you feel like you struggle to set boundaries? And then from there, just email me or wave at me or go to my Facebook page and we will connect and have a conversation about how you can set better boundaries. It really, I in my last training that I taught with somebody, she said to me, I wasn't really fully aware of how important boundaries are for the foundation of everything. They really do set you up for success. So I'm happy to give you that assessment. Go take a look at it. It'll give you some food for thought and really give you some insight about where you need work and where you don't. I mean, sometimes
Yes.
we can set boundaries with our kids, but then we fall down at work, or we struggle in our business or work, and we're great at home.
Mm-hmm.
So Thank you for asking that. It will give you some good insight for that.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have got to go grab that because, if you're struggling in any area, right? You're struggling with the success in your business, the success in your relationship, the success with your kids, whatever it is, this, free assessment is going to help you figure out where you're lacking or where you're giving too much, some of those pieces so that you can come out clear.
It it should.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Julie. This has been so much fun having you here. And I tell you guys, go grab that, talk to Julie, get this figured out because it will make a big difference in your life.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an important topic. I always say it. I think it's one of the things that we should be taught in school, and it's just not. So,
Yeah,
if
it's
anyone
not.
has
It's not.
any, if
Uh-huh.
anybody has any other questions, please feel free to contact me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can post them in the chat, message Julie. We're happy to come back and answer questions you guys may have on this subject. But we go grab that assessment, juliehawkins.com, and find out where you may have some boundary issues you don't even know about, right? So
Absolutely.
grab that today. And I hope you guys all have an amazing, amazing rest of your week. Think about this week. I always like to give you all challenges. So today it's think about where those boundaries might be showing up for you in a negative way, where you're not getting the success you want. What is it that might be stopping you from getting there? What boundary do you need to put in place so that you can get there? I hope you all have a blessed day. We will see you next time.